How we doing, guys? I'm Richard McKeaton, and here is your fucking excuse. So, first thing I want to say is, if you're genuinely offended by swearing, look, I'm really sorry. I'm not deliberately setting out to offend anyone. I just happen to feel quite strongly about that, and I wanted to express it in the strongest way possible. I do have other content which is more PG friendly. However, on this particular occasion, I really wanted to get across an important message. If you can bear with it, I'm sure you'll find it useful. Let's move on. So what exactly am I talking about with this? It's this kind of thing. It's been a gripe of mine for years now. This guy is age 91. Your excuse is invalid. This guy's in a wheelchair. Tell me your excuse again. Hey, screw you, wheelchair. I've got no arms or legs. What's your excuse? Haha, arms and legs, man. I'm just a kid and I've got a prosthetic leg and I run with a guy in the rain with just his shorts on. What's your excuse? Ha! You're pathetic, kid. I'm a mum and I'm not fat and I have kids. So what's your excuse? And this guy's 104 years old. Mum, what's your excuse? I think all of these things, whilst on their own merit, I'm sure they're very inspirational and perhaps to a lot of people are motivational, but I think they simplify a complex picture and they invoke a guilt narrative which is needless and doesn't have to be there. There are genuine reasons why people aren't in the best shape. There are genuine reasons why people are struggling, and just showing people who overcome difficult circumstances is a little irresponsible if that's the only picture we're presenting. However, there is one person who's overcome a lot of tough circumstances, I'm sure you'll agree, is an inspiration to us all, and that's Gwyneth Paltrow, who says, in her own words, every woman can make time, every woman. And you can do it with your baby in the room. There have been countless times where I worked out with my kids, crawling around all over the place. You just make it work, and if it's important to you, it'll be important to them. Yeah, thanks, Gwyneth. Thanks for that intellectual candor. That's really. So, I think for anybody who isn't a millionaire Hollywood actress with access to dietitians, personal trainers, personal chefs, and a lot of free time on their hands, and a career that depends on kind of looking in decent shape, then I think there's some good nuggets to be had here. That being said, I mean there's other good Gwyneth Paltrow nuggets we can tap into. For example, these are her, I think they're called Astro eggs, inserted vaginally, about 50 odd quid on her website. And if you use these, according to Gwyneth, they can help restore natural hormonal patterns and menstrual cycles. There might not be much truth to that, at least to the extent that she had to pay out £112,000 earlier on this year as libel, because she basically was talking bollocks. You can also buy these multivitamins from her website for about 80 quid, which I'm sure aren't too dissimilar to ones you can buy from Boots for a couple of quid. Let's move on. I'd like to meet someone who perhaps, I'd just like to present a more clearer picture of, someone who has challenges and might not necessarily be able to overcome in the same way that Gwyneth can. Maybe she's not seen that quote by Gwyneth, so she isn't yet inspired. So this is my friend Doris. She's quite badly drawn, but somehow we make it work. I'll tell you a little bit about Doris. So she's got 2 kids. She's a single mum. In the morning, she drops them off at school, and then she goes to work several hours in an office, comes back, picks the kids up from the babysitters, gets their dinner ready, doesn't always manage to cook something from scratch, although she tries to if she can. So sometimes it might be a microwave meal, and then it's put the kids to bed after she's done their homework with them, do a bit of cleaning, get ready for the next day, and then try and get some sleep herself and deal with all the stresses that she has to face in life, such as paying the bills and all the rest of it. So, admittedly, all these challenges have, Doris hasn't always been able to eat healthy. She's not very active. She sits at her desk and weirdly, she doesn't find time to exercise. However, Luckily for her, even though she's let herself go a bit and she's put a bit of weight on, she comes across this for $30 with an easy payment, never mind those difficult payments. She can go on a juice diet for 7 days, and that's going to really help her lose some weight. And she does it, and lo and behold, it does. Yay! Well done, Doris. Yeah, go girl, you're looking good. When Doris starts eating normal food, she struggles. She goes to a birthday party and she feels obliged to have a slice of cake with her kids and to not be rude to the parents who are hosting it. And when she cooks a meal for her kids, she'll not want to prepare a separate meal for herself, so she'll cook something for them and have something with them, and then she'll have a bit of bread and just any normal food. I'm not singling out these foods in particular, she's just eating food. But when she does this, Doris, look what's happened. You've really let yourself go, you fat bitch. Problem is, sorted by the fact that she can go on another juice diet with a different brand, different slimming club, etc. And lo and behold, yay, Doris, you've done it again. Let's not let it fall back this time, eh, Doris? If you started eating normal food again, and you mean you can no longer carry on eating shakes for the rest of your life? Oh dear. So this happened lots of Doris over the years. She goes on various diets and slimming clubs, and she does low carb diet, she does low fat diet, she does a paleo diet, she does a keto diet, she does a points diet, she does this, she does that, she loses weight, she puts it back on, and I think Doris is getting a bit fed up with this roller coaster. And I think this exemplifies the point. Weight loss isn't really the problem. People can lose weight. If they go on a diet, they'll lose weight, and it doesn't matter. To some extent, it doesn't really matter which diet they go on. It all comes down to calories. Essentially, weight loss is about calories. All diets will work a calorie deficit. So, for example, this guy, Professor Mark Hobbs, he's known as the Twinkie Professor. I'm sure he's either a dietitian or he teaches something along that nature in America. So for 2 months, he went on a Twinkie diet, lost 27 pounds of weight. So essentially he just ate most of his calories from sugary stuff. And he lost a lot of weight. This guy, Chaz Weaver, for 1 month he ate nothing but McDonald's, but he reduced his calories when he was doing this. He ordered the foods that were going to help him achieve his calorie deficit every day, and he lost 8 pounds. And then there's this guy, Chris Voigt, who has the enviable job of working for the Potato Marketing Board in Chicago. And because he was so fed up with the bad press potatoes we're getting from low carb diets, he went on a 20 potato a day diet for 60 days, and he lost 21 pounds, and he lowered his blood glucose and his triglycerides and cholesterol and had some good health outcomes. And the point of all of this is not to say, do this diet, go on the Twinkie diet or eat at McDonald's for a month. This is more aimed at the health puritans, the people who will tell you, you've got to eat clean and you can't eat any of this junk because it will affect your weight, and it won't. You can eat this stuff and lose weight and be healthy at the same time. But let's unpack that a bit more. So weight loss isn't really the problem. The key is maintaining lost weight. That's the real issue that we're facing. There's a 95% failure rate with this. That's quite a general figure. Doesn't necessarily apply to everybody. It depends what method they're trying, whether they're getting the right help and support from various professionals to achieve that. But various scientific studies and research has pointed to a 95% failure rate. In other words, those who lose weight after a year are more or less likely to have put it back on. So here it is. Here is your excuse. The excuse is that weight loss is just really hard, and that's even if you've got money for personal trainers, dietitians, chefs and childcare. So you'll see so many celebrities who struggle with this, and they've got everything you could want. They can go see a personal trainer every day. They can pay for all their meals to be cooked for them, and they can eat nothing but those, and they'll still struggle. Even if they've got plenty of time on your hands, and even if you've got support around you, it's still hard. And even if you're doing it for health reasons, if you've got to lose weight for an operation, people still struggle. Or if they know that they've got high blood pressure, or they need to do it because otherwise, the risk in a heart attack. Weight loss is still difficult, even with these big incentives. And even when people have had operations, even when they've had gastric bypasses and stuff that makes it hard to eat, people have still put weight back on after these things. And even when you're super knowledgeable, the amount of dietitians and doctors and nurses and medical professionals who've got a good knowledge, or even at worst, a good basic knowledge, they know what's healthy and what isn't. Generally, they still struggle with weight, many of them. So all of these things are a valid excuse. So even without these things, it's even harder. So let's cover why this might be. So first of all, do overweight people have a slower metabolism? I'm going to introduce you to another badly drawn friend of mine. This is my friend Douglas. Things about Douglas, he's the same height as me. We're both 6'2". This is a picture of me taken just a few minutes ago, just casually stretching out my arms. Douglas is the same weight as me. We're both 85 kilos. Douglas used to be 94 kilos. He's lost 10% of his body weight through diets. Go Douglas. That's going to become quite relevant soon. We're both the same age, and we've got a similar job. We're on our feet most of the day with what we do. So if we put all these things into a Harris-Benedict equation to work out the daily calorie expenditure of what we do, we should come up with about 2,600 calories per day that we expend. Me and Douglas should be very similar, but we're not. There's a difference. Douglas' expenditure is actually 520 to 650 calories less per day. It's about a quarter less than what I eat. We're both the same weight, same height, same activity, but Douglas has to eat a quarter less than what I eat. And this is called adaptive thermogenesis. And this occurs even when people keep hold of the muscle mass as they've lost weight. So me and Douglas could even have the same amount of muscle at the same weight. Douglas would still have this issue. So essentially, I can eat the same as Douglas, but on top of that, every day I could also have a Big Mac, or I could have a Mars bar. And I think the take-home message from all of this is it sucks to be Douglas, essentially. But let's explore that a little bit further. So, what are the reasons for difficulty with maintaining weight loss? You're probably thinking of a few now. Let's go through them. So, is there a bit of a drop in metabolism, perhaps? Do people just expend less calories as they lose weight? Are there various hormonal changes which take place with weight loss, which make it more difficult to keep that weight off? Is it something to do with existing fat cells? I don't know if you've heard this or not before. When you lose weight, you still keep the same amount of fat cells. So to put weight back on, they kind of just need filling again. We'll explore that. We'll look a bit at genes, and we'll look a bit at habits too. The kind of things that people might do which haven't changed with a diet, which inevitably lead to them putting weight back on. And if you've not heard of this before, non-exercise adaptive thermogenesis, or NEAT. This is essentially, it's not exercise, it's not sitting on your arse all day. This is just people who can't stop moving versus people who are maybe just slightly more idle. Subconsciously idle, that is. Right, so let's go into this. So when I talk about 2,600 calories a day, what are we actually doing with those calories? Where do they go? So about 60 to 70% are used what we call basal metabolic rate calories. So out of those 2,600 that I should be having a day, I'll probably burn more than that when I exercise. About 60 to 7% of that are just keeping me alive. In other words, if I just laid on the couch all day, that's how many calories I would need just to kind of maintain my heart, brain, breathing, everything else, just to keep me ticking over. They're the calories I'll need. So most of my calories are there, the BMR. 15 to 50% non-exercise adaptive thermogenesis. There's that word again, NEAT, just moving. That's quite a big discrepancy there. Do you see that? 15 to 50%. That hints at something we're going to look into later on. And about 15 to 30% of our daily calories are used through exercise, depending obviously on whether you exercise and if you do, whether you've actually worked out that day, how tough the session was, etc. And about 10 to 15% of the calories that you eat every single day are used up by actual eating. Actually digesting food uses up some of the calories that food contains. So yeah, we're not going to explore that too much today, but that's of relevance when it comes to kind of keeping weight off long term. So, is the metabolism slower in overweight people of those who've lost weight? So if someone's lost weight, has their metabolism slowed down? So if we're thinking of a rapid metabolism, this might be someone who, no matter what they eat, they just can't seem to put on weight. And a slow metabolism, might just be someone who, they feel like they hardly eat anything at all, and they just seem to gain it no matter what they do. So this has actually been tested. They've got people in laboratories and they've done various measurements and looked at oxygen levels of what's burnt and what's not. And what they've realised is the impact of weight loss on metabolism, and specifically this was a 10% drop in weight loss, resulted in about 30.5 to 26.9 calories per kilo of lean. So it was a drop, a small drop. Remember, it is only a small drop. If you think back to the calorie difference between myself and Douglas, there's about 600 calories difference. This accounts for about 100 of those calories. So it's not hugely significant, but it's there. It's something to be aware of. And straight away we realise that when people have lost weight, they're at a significant disadvantage to people who've never put weight on before. It's just something to bear in mind. Moving on from this. So reasons for difficulty maintaining weight loss. Metabolism drop, yeah, definitely. There's a slight metabolism drop. So, it plays a role. One thing I need to mention is that 10% body weight loss, that's as far as the metabolism drop will go. So like a 20% weight loss or 30% of body weight loss, it won't slow down any more than it already has done. 10% seems to be the maximum as we understand it at the moment. So let's have a look at hormonal changes. This is probably where it gets a little bit more complex, and I'm not going to confess to be an expert in this, but I've got a basic understanding, and I hope I can explain this properly. So leptin is an appetite hormone. Essentially it regulates energy expenditure, and it's mainly produced by fat cells. And just an interesting fact, although it's not necessarily relevant as far as we know at the moment, but it's about 2 to 3 times higher in women. So leptin tells you when you're full. When you're full, your body should produce leptin, and that should stop you from eating. We know that because it's mainly produced by fat cells, when people lose fat, their levels of leptin increase. So something that's really working against people who've lost weight is they're going to be hungrier than people who haven't lost weight, and that's really going to affect them long term. That's something that, as far as I'm aware, as I understand at the moment, doesn't seem to change much. If people who've lost weight are more than likely going to be more hungry than people who haven't lost weight. So yeah, that plays a role. The thyroid hormone. Another thing which happens with fat cells is there's a regulation with thyroid hormone. There are changes that take place, although we can't say at the moment just how relevant those changes are. It's something to do with the ratio of T3 and T4 and how that converts, but it's not as yet understood on its impact for why people struggle to lose weight. So we can't necessarily say that's a big thing, although there are definitely some changes which take place. Cortisol, the research on this is quite mixed. Some people, when they lose weight, have higher cortisol levels. Cortisol is a stress hormone, in case you wasn't aware. And some people who lose weight have lower cortisol, and some people it's about the same. So, yeah, maybe it plays a factor, but it's not the factor. But it's there, and it's something to be considered. Certainly something to look at if I'm trying to help anyone lose weight. And sex hormones. Yeah, these may well be altered with weight loss. Fat cells also can, in some cases, alter people's hormones. Well, in most cases, will alter. In men, they might produce lower levels of testosterone and high levels of estrogen, and in women, they can just create an excess of estrogen. And exactly how this plays out is stupidly complex, and I'll go back to what I said on thyroid. There are changes, but we still don't really understand what those changes are and just how relevant they are compared to other factors which are probably more important. So the most likely long-term effects on hormones with weight loss, yeah, there's a relevance here. There's certainly a relevance. So metabolism drop affecting weight loss and hormones, yeah, that's also going to affect things. So what about existing fat cells? So the thing to understand about fat is it doesn't just sit there doing nothing. It's actually an organ, just like your heart, just like your brain. It does something. It produces hormones. It has a function within the body, and the more fat cells you have, the more that function is going to play a part. So fat cells, one of the main important functions is they're messengers for energy regulation. So they'll tell your brain just how much energy that you've got available, and how much energy storage. And they'll play a key factor in that word we used earlier, adaptive thermogenesis. So if there's not much energy coming in and there's less energy storage available, that will trigger a reaction within the brain to change things, change the body in a number of ways. And the thing to understand about fat cells is they can never be destroyed. Oh my God. So that's I guess disheartening. I don't want to leave anyone with a negative impression from this, but fat cells exist, and when you lose weight, they are still there, and I would say theoretically, one of the reasons it's easier to put weight on is fat cells don't need to be created, which takes energy to create fat cells. So it's probably easier to fill them. But I'm going off on a limb here because I'm not sure the research would 100% support me on that. Moving on. So reasons for difficulty with maintaining weight loss: metabolism drop, hormone changes, and existing fat cells. Yeah, this is probably going to play a part too. So let's move on to genes. So genes control a number of things within your body. They'll control the amount of weight that you gain. There's a twin study. I think it was in America. It was done on a university campus. They took people. They took, I think it was 9-10 sets of twins, and for 6 months they overfed them by 1,000 calories, 6 days out of 7, and they all gained weight, but they all gained weight in various amounts, and it was relative to their twin more or less gained the same amount of weight as them, and they more or less gained it in the same places too. So some of the twins gained it around the hips, some of them gained it more around their belly, and as I say, some didn't actually gain that much at all. We'll go a little bit further into that. That has something to do with activity. Some people, when they overeat, they'll move more. And that's probably going to be crucial to this discussion. We're going to come on to much more in depth soon. But yeah, genes play a part in whether you're the sort of person who eats more and moves less, or eats more and as a consequence moves more. Guess which one is going to lead to making it easier to lose weight and keep it off. So the key to this is to choose better parents. So after you finished watching this presentation, go sort your parents out and come back with better ones. Good luck. So, yeah, we've covered some important factors so far, just 2 more to go. So moving on, habits, lifestyle and habits. So in other words, what life actually looks like when you've lost weight. Well, one of the key things is social support. It's having the right people around you, just giving you a bit of a cheer during the challenges that you're going to face, because weight loss, you know, it's for life. It's not just, you can lose weight short term, like, you know, just a quick, I don't know, massive calorie deficit just to really get things kick-started. That's absolutely fine. There's no big issue with that. but then there has to be something in place which is going to help it last long term. People can't just go back to their old habits. And a really important part of this is just having good people around you, giving you a bit of encouragement, someone to talk to when you're struggling. And yeah, that's going to play a key role. Cost of food. Now, I would argue that this shouldn't be a factor, that people can lead really healthy lives and eat healthy diets without spending too much. However, if somebody has spent a lot of money losing weight through various supplements or routines, and then they have to go back to living on their normal budget, this might be a big issue. Also, if people believe that somehow everything has to be organic and everything has to be the best quality, again, that is going to add to cost. So that's an issue. Social life, and it's probably one of the biggest issues. Office cakes, someone comes in from work and it's their birthday and they're having cake, and it's fine to resist it the first day when you're trying to lose weight, and then it's the second day, and then it's the week later, and then it's a month later, and at some point you just think, I'll just have a bit, and a bit turns into a bit more. This is always going to be there, and whether or not people should have a little bit of cake if they want some, it's going to depend on a number of factors. And then of course we've got contradictory advice. 1 minute you should eat less fat, and the next, fat's not actually that bad. And we could say that probably the same about carbohydrates or paleo, ancestry, or whatever other fad is currently going strong at the moment. Stress, you can lose weight, but then you've got to go back to your normal life, and sometimes diet isn't the most important thing in your life. If you've had some big life changes, then diet kind of is going to take second place. But being able to manage your diet, even when you've got challenges, even when you've got to continue with your normal job and meetings and taking the kids to school and whatever else your life looks like, this is definitely going to play a role. So the other side of that coin is rest. Just taking time out. Are you getting enough time in your day-to-day to actually have some recuperation? Is it all go with you, or are you deliberately having some just a few moments where you don't have your phone on, where you're by yourself, or you're with people that you care about? Are you getting enough sleep? This can play a really crucial role in helping with weight loss and for good health in general for a number of reasons. But one of the key things relevant to weight loss, remember that hormone I mentioned earlier, leptin, the one that helps you to feel full? Well, lack of sleep is something that's shown to help decrease that hormone, so you don't get full as easy. And ghrelin, which I don't think I've mentioned so far, is a hormone which tells you when you're hungry. And ghrelin, the gremlin, to help you remember it, if you don't have much sleep, then you've got increased levels of ghrelin. So you're more hungry and you don't get full as easy, which is a bit of a nightmare for trying to maintain your weight. And just big life changes, when you're struggling with someone close to you dying, or you're going through a divorce, or you're moving house, having kids, or all of these all at the same time, it's, again, diet can really take a second place. You're probably not going to have the time to count calories or weigh everything out. You might have to find other methods of tracking your food to help you keep a grip on it without having to expend all your energy on it. And lapses happen with everyone. They're just temporary setbacks. Often it's a cue for people to just give in and go to town on that bag of Doritos and 6-pack of beer or whatever, but it really isn't. Everybody is going to suffer a lapse at some point. How you handle these tough times is the key part. And again, adjusting to a new life. If somebody spent all their life being overweight and now they've lost weight and they've managed to keep it off for a while, that can play with their mindset. It can feel uncomfortable for them, that they've not had to be this person who's getting attention that maybe they weren't getting before, or people are treating them differently, and that in itself can cause some stresses and can even lead to perhaps a tendency for people wanting to put a bit of weight back on because they're just not comfortable with being a thinner version of themselves. So various cognitive strategies might be something people should consider here, whether they go ahead and get counselling, which more and more people do now. Mindfulness is another one. I'm quite big on the mindfulness myself. Currently use the Waking Up app. If you've not heard of it, check it out. It's a really good mindfulness course. I just do 10 minutes a day. It's not for everyone, but I found it useful and other people have too. So there we go. We've covered quite a few so far. Difficulty maintaining weight loss. Metabolism drop, yep. Hormonal changes, sure. Existing fat cells, okay. Genes, yep. And habits, absolutely. Let's move on to this final one, which you might or may not have been aware of until today. NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This covers everything you do which isn't sat on a couch and isn't exercising. Walking, for example, this is how I usually walk. Fidgeting, yeah, some people fidget, some don't. Again, this is more than likely controlled by genes, but those people who have to drum the fingers, tap the feet, just can't stop moving, yeah, that's going to burn a lot of calories per day without having to work too hard or go to the gym. Posture, just sitting up more will burn more calories than slouching. Stood up burns a lot more calories than sat down. Walking burns more calories than stood up. These things all play a really key role. Being desk bound versus being active, if you've got an active job, you're quite fortunate. Quite often I've known people to put weight on, and the only change they had is they got a promotion, and suddenly they're no longer walking the factory floor, they're sat at a desk managing things, and as a consequence they're expending less calories per day, but they're still eating the same amount, so they put weight on, and that happens quite a lot. So the calorie difference, it's really significant. About 15% of daily calories if you're sedentary, and about 50% if you're active. So in other words, nearly half the calories you expend every day can be put down to this, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And that's something we should really be thinking about, the impact of things which are probably underestimated, like walking. You don't have to necessarily have to force yourself to fidget, but maybe sitting up straight, maybe trying to take more walks where you can. These can play a really key role, and it can equate to about 130 to 685 calories per day, which would really add up over a year. And one thing to mention is your NEAT is affected by obviously exercise. I'll come back to genes on this. Some people, when they exercise, they will actually move less for the rest of the day. So they might think they're doing good by going to the gym, but then without even, it's a subconscious thing normally, that they've been to the gym so that they feel like they can relax the rest of the day, and they'll move less than even they normally would. It's also affected by age. That's probably not a massive shock to anyone with kids. Kids seem to just not stop moving all day long, whereas the older people get, the less they tend to move. And overfeeding, when people eat too much, that's something else which can impact on NEAT, although not with everyone. Some people will move more as a consequence of overfeeding. So, significantly affected by weight loss. This is probably getting to the crux of the matter, and probably if you take home nothing else today, take home this. When people lose weight, it's often the NEAT which is massively affected. They move less as they lose more weight, and partly this is down to muscle efficiency. Their muscles will burn less calories doing the same task. Think of a runner. Somebody goes running, they go out and they run for 10 minutes, and they burn, I don't know, 200 calories or whatever. They do that same 10-minute run every day for a month, 2 months. After a while, they're not burning 200 calories anymore, they're burning 150, and then it's 100. What's happened is their body's got more efficient at burning calories. Their muscles are now much better at handling that load and that stress, and they're not having to work as hard anymore. So muscle efficiency is a really key part of helping to burn your calories every single day. I hope I've explained that properly. So metabolism drop, hormonal changes, existing fat cells, genes and habits, yeah, they all play a part, but for me, one of the take homes on this is non-exercise adaptive thermogenesis. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. this plays a really key role that people need to consider. So the solutions: calorie cycling. So this example is a graph of a guy I worked with who lost, I think he lost about, what's that at the end, 88? 90, I can't remember what he got down to in there. I think he lost about 10 kilos overall, but it was over a year. And we dropped calories up until about the summer holidays. You can see there in July and August, his weight goes up slightly, which was fine. You know, he was on holiday and I said, look, just relax, have some beers, you know, just go to the barbecues and don't feel like you had to constantly be on a diet. But then when that was over, he got back on it again and was able to lose some more weight. And then Christmas came around and quite naturally calories increased. As I said to him, you know, it's fine if they do, you know, just enjoy yourself. There's more to life than trying to be on a constant diet. So just having this at the back of your mind, if you've lost weight, it's fine for weight to go up slightly. People can panic if the scales go up. You know, have a range that you're comfortable with. The scales can be up or down a certain amount of kilos, and you know that, yeah, it's gone up, but it's because of this, and I'm going to do this about it. Autonomy is key for long-term weight maintenance, because you've got to be in charge. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of others, and others, less unscrutable people, might be willing to sell you a diet based on just complete bullshit. And you don't even have to question it when you've got autonomy. You can just say, well, that sounds interesting, but I think I'll stick with what I know, and I think I'll try and do what seems more sensible and works for me. And then it puts you in the driving seat. You're not reliant upon another person. Improving satiety. We mentioned earlier the leptin hormones being higher in people who've lost weight. Ways to help improve satiety. Essentially, this is, you know, making you full up quicker. So protein is an important part of that. Protein is more satiating than either carbohydrates or fat. Fiber also plays a key role in this. Dense foods, so this might be like, 200 grams of watermelon versus 200 grams of crisp. You know, your body is eating 200 grams of food, but one's a lot lower in calories, and that's going to play a difference into the amount of food that you eat each day. Being aware of calorie dense food versus calorie low density foods, but which has still got the same volume. And I would suggest this, it's not something people often think about, especially when they're trying to buy diet books which make food seem really healthy and tasty at the same time. It's not all healthy food has to be super tasty. You can eat bland food as long as it's nice enough. And the problem with making it too tasty, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is that you're probably going to want to eat more of it. At least if it's a bit bland, yeah, and you're less likely to overindulge. You can still have the really nice stuff now and then, but make it now and then you're more likely to enjoy it then too. Limiting your choice of indulgence food, having less indulgence foods in the cupboards, and just having more of an abundance of healthy foods around. It's getting those ratios right around your house and around your environment. Other solutions: using substitutes wisely. This probably isn't the best example of substitutes I've chosen, but for example, if you go to McDonald's and you had, instead of the Big Mac with large fries and Coke, you could have the Big Mac with small fries and a Diet Coke, and you've lost about nearly 500 calories there when you do that, and you've still been able to go to McDonald's and enjoy yourself there. Health trackers. This is my cat Eugene, named after Eugene Sandow, famous world strongman in olden days. I really like this. It's my Fitbit. I forget which model it is. I think it's one of the recent ones, if not the second to most recent one. Essentially, for every 1,000 steps I get to give my cat Eugene a piece of fish. My kids love pressing it. These devices aren't the most accurate, but even though they're not the most accurate, they're consistently inaccurate. So I know if I get 8,000 steps one day and 15,000 steps the next day, I've definitely done a lot more steps the next day. It might have been an exact representation of the amount of steps I've done, but coming back earlier to what we talked about with NEAT, this is a really cool way to track it, and I think it could make a really big difference for a lot of people. So this is something I use. I'll try and remember to put links to these in the underneath this video if you're interested in getting one. The one that I use, I can't necessarily speak for other. I'm sure Apple Watches and Samsungs are also just as good, but this is one I'm using and I quite like it. And there's lots of other faces that you can use with that clock. Just being flexible with your diet and with your social life, making a bit of time now and then for a bit of good wholesome junk, and just finding an approach that works for you, whether it be low carb or low fat, or whether you're someone who does better with fasting, like a 5-2 or 16-8. Whatever works for you, the best diet is one that you're actually going to stick to. And yeah, it doesn't matter to me whether you choose the low carb or low fat approach. It's whatever. So I would personally try and tailor it to suit you, but then automatically you've got to be autonomous. You've got to make the choice of what you think works best for you. And the environment that you live in, constantly locking up or hiding or getting rid of hard to control foods. Certain foods are quite irresistible to a lot of people. I think to everyone actually, if you've got those ratios of sugar, fat and salt right in the first place, and people, once they pop, they really just cannot stop until they've ate the whole tube. So having these foods either not in the house or out of the way if they've got to be in the house, and not having them inside, so every time you walk in the kitchen I'll have a bit of that, even though you didn't go in for it, you sit on the side and you go for it. Yeah, changing your environment can be, it's not a game changer, but it can really play a big part long term. It's something to think of. I'll talk a bit about exercise. First thing to say is all exercise is good. It all helps. Anything that burns calories helps. Thoughts on cardio? I love a bit of cardio. I'm a regular runner. Cardio may have potential improvement in leptin, the hunger hormone we talked about earlier. And one of the downfalls is it might increase muscle efficiency, which again is something I discussed earlier with the NEAT slide. People who run regularly will often find that they burn less calories the more often that they run. That's not necessarily a terrible thing, but it's something to be aware of. I've met a lot of marathon runners and people who run often who can't understand why they're putting weight on, and it's to do with this increased efficiency. So they're not burning as many calories anymore unless they run further or faster, or better yet, in my opinion, do some resistance. One of my workout slides accidentally got stuck in here. So lifting weights, or not necessarily weights, where you're doing press-ups or some bodyweight squats, or resistance is really cool for bone health, much more than cardio is. Lean tissue burn, so having more muscle slightly increases the amount of calories you burn every day, but let's kind of be realistic with this. Let's say the best case scenario, we've got a 16-year-old, starts training, is consistent, it has good advice. Over 4 years, he puts on 46 pounds of muscle, which is being really, really generous with what somebody might expect. They would burn an extra 276 calories per day, which is cool. They can have an extra Mars bar per day without having to worry too much on top of their calories, as long as it's within the daily calories. But it's not a huge difference. And let's look at a more realistic scenario. Some of the clients I might get middle-aged ladies, and over 3 years they might put on 5 pounds, and that's going to be about 30 calories per day, which is, over a year it's probably 1.5 kilos in terms of how much they would burn with that. But that's not to dismiss the extra muscle, because it really does play a key part in health. The calories used to create that muscle, the recovery, the increased calories, the increased insulin sensitivity, the improved hormonal profile that people get from resistance work. And I know I'm speaking of a bias here. I'll go back to what I said earlier about exercise. It's all good, but I definitely advise resistance work to anybody who's looking to maintain weight that they've kept off. And reduced efficiency. This was actually quite a recent study. I think it only came out a couple of months ago. A gym in, I think it was Equinox Gym in New York, did this study. They looked at reduced efficiency with weight training, which was something theorized for a while, but has now been proven. We talked about the changes in NEAT due to muscle efficiency. Well, this is something which can really help with that and help people to burn more calories per day. And remember, it's not just for bodybuilders. I think the picture's changing a lot more now, but for a long time it was just guys lifting weights or doing resistance stuff, and now more and more women are doing it too. More elderly are starting to do it, and they've all seen the benefits. So, I hope you've enjoyed this talk. If you want any more, go to my website, sign up to my newsletter. I regularly, probably not as regularly as I should do, will be sending out this kind of stuff, articles and various bits. I've probably got some programs coming up soon which people can sign up to if they're interested, if they want to work with me. You can catch me on social media, Facebook, Rich McKeaton, Twitter, RMK Health, and Instagram, Rich McKeaton, _McKeaton. I'm probably a bit lazy with this stuff. I probably don't post as much as I should, but I'm trying to do a bit more of it, and I promise I will be in the future. If you have really enjoyed today, there's a few other people I've worked with. Okay, I don't just work with guys. I've worked with housewives, I work with athletes, I've worked with a lot of disabled people, but this probably is one of my fortes of working with guys and getting them into sort of photo shoot type shape. This is some of the stuff I've done with Men's Health and also with joe.co.uk for different projects. And yeah, so what I should have said in the last slide, if you've enjoyed today's presentation, please could you consider making a donation to Humber Rescue. It's a voluntary organisation. I volunteer with them, and what we do is we're essentially a lifeboat house. We go out when people are in trouble at sea, when boats have got stuck, or when people are drowning, and we help save people's lives. So if you could contribute to that, if you've enjoyed today, if you found it useful, I would really appreciate that. You can text 770 HUM R35 and the amount, or you can go to the actual Humber Rescue site and make a PayPal donation if it's more than £10. Thanks a lot if you do that. It's massively, massively appreciated. Nobody at Humber Rescue earns a salary. It's all volunteers. There's no highly paid chief exec. So we appreciate any help we can get with keeping the lights on. And that's it. That's it for today's presentation. This is a bit different from what I normally do. So I'd really appreciate any feedback if you'd like me to do more of this kind of stuff. If you have any questions, any comments, please go ahead and let me know. And thank you very much. That's the end of the presentation. Cheers.